All right, let's go Pittsburgh Steelers at the Washington Commanders. This ends up being one of the games of the week here. Steelers 6-2, Commanders 7-2. Washington's favored by 2.5. Over under 45.5 per our friends over at FanDuel. Pretty good game here, man. And I just want to set this up. This is a 4-day stretch, I should say. We're going to learn a lot about Washington. They have the Steelers. They're playing Pennsylvania right here.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Pennsylvania teams. Pittsburgh on Sunday, Philadelphia on Thursday. We might have something special after that game. But that 4-day stretch here with a 7-2 Commanders, I think we're going to learn a lot about where they stand in the league right now.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's another interesting challenge, right, for Jayden Daniels and this Washington offense. Pittsburgh's defense is really good. Pittsburgh may have the best pass rush in the NFL, top to bottom. Washington's offensive line has been really good relative to expectations. They were another team where on paper it's not a great looking group, and you're like that. If there's an area where they could be undermined this season, it's the offensive line. But basically all of them are grading well at PFF, particularly in terms of pass protection. So, and that's in general terms. Now, does that hold when you go up against TJ Watt and Alex Highsmith and Cameron Hayward and everybody they can bring to the table? So that's going to be interesting. How does Jayden Daniels do against this incredibly good defensive front, particularly if they start winning against that offensive line?
Yeah, so Brandon Coleman, third-round rookie, got the start and played the entire game for Washington last week because Cornelius Lucas, who he'd been rotating with, was hurt, and Lucas still, see what happens if he ends up playing. But yeah, the line has been impressive for Washington. How much of that is just the new system? I thought Cliff Kingsbury's always had a sneaky good run game through the years. But yeah, they're going up against the top pass rushing grade per PFF, team pass rushing grade in the NFL with the Steelers, with TJ Watt, Alex Highsmith, Cameron Hayward, Keanu Benton. Love that group rushing the passer. So I think they have a chance to create pressure. The difference, though, is, I keep calling Jaden Daniels the best scrambling quarterback, maybe the best scrambling quarterback in the NFL, because of feel, because of pocket acceleration, because he just breaks angles, right? And so it is a difficult balance, because I know that when we talk about pressure, we're usually doing it through the lens of how PFF does it, which is like, are you defeating blocks? Are you creating havoc on the quarterback? A lot of NFL coaches look at that, emphasize that a little less, and they talk about gap discipline a little bit more, and you have to have that. So if they win up front, the Steelers, can Jayden Daniels offset that with his ability to scramble and turn a sack into 7 yards? That's something I'll be keeping an eye on, because if he gets sacked 5 or 6 times, I think they're in trouble.
Yeah, or even beyond that, does his scrambling threat change the dynamic? Like, does that actually slow down the pass rush without having to be better blockers, right? If, the Pittsburgh, if you take Jayden Daniels out of there and throw any random, less mobile quarterback into the pocket, I would assume Pittsburgh's defensive front really does a number on this Washington offensive line, as good as it has been. But when you put Jayden Daniels back there, does that slow them up? Does that make them change different angles? Like, can TJ Watt do what he normally does, which is decide, all right, I'm gonna have one of those plays now where I'm just gonna go nuts, beat the offensive tackle around the corner, get my strip sack, fumble, recovery, etc., end the game. Can he do that if Jayden Daniels is the quarterback? Because if he's a half step too deep, that's a gap. Daniels is off. That's a 20-yard scramble. Big first down. That's going to be interesting. Like, does Daniels have that much of an impact on how the pass rush actually sets about their job, that the offensive line is able to hold its own?
On the other side, so both teams have added players here. Now, Marshawn Lattimore has been dealing with a groin injury.
Right.
Not sure if he's going to end up playing.
Well, the question is, was that a Devontae Adams type of groin injury, or is that actually a thing that's going to keep him off the field for a while?
Insert the Kevin Nash getting out of the wheelchair meme here. Like, new team, I'm healthy, here we go.
Right.
So we'll see. Both teams traded for players, right? We talked about this yesterday. Listen to yesterday's show. We had our trade analysis on Mike Williams coming to the Steelers, Preston Smith coming to the Steelers, Marshawn Lattimore going to the Commanders. But both teams made moves at the deadline. And one of the biggest stories you and I have been keeping an eye on is this Washington defense, right? As the offense has been carrying that team early in the season, all of a sudden they're playing better in recent weeks, creating a little bit more havoc. Dan Quinn maybe finding his groove. He's, the head coach. He's a defensive guy. They add Lattimore to the mix whenever he gets, into the mix here. If Washington's defense steps up, because I think their offense has to regress a little bit. I mean, they're still at this historical rate of putting points on the board, moving the ball. Probably has to regress a little bit. So the defense has to step up. So that's going to be maybe the matchup for me. We've got week 3 of Russell Wilson, third game of Russ, where we've said the ceiling of this offense has been raised. He's going to get the ball down the field. Now you give him a big-bodied target in Mike Williams to take some more of those shots, take a little pressure off George Pickens and Pat Freiermuth in the middle of the field against this Washington defense. So that matchup might end up be the one that determines the game here.
Yeah, whether or not they have Marshawn Lattimore, I feel like Pittsburgh's wide receivers are actually a solid matchup for Washington's corners in a way. Like, remember a few weeks ago, Washington played Baltimore. You're like, I don't know how Benjamin St-Juste covers Zay Flowers.
Right.
It's just a horrible stylistic matchup. Pittsburgh's receivers, though, it's more big, lack of separation, contested catch people. That, I think, like George Pickens versus St-Juste, I think is actually a solid matchup for St-Juste. Doesn't mean he won't still lose. Doesn't mean Pickens won't make the contested catch. But I feel like St-Juste has a much better chance of actually executing that assignment than he does against a small, shifty wide receiver. And generally, Pittsburgh's receivers skew towards that style of player. The only guy that isn't is Calvin Austin. Like, does he actually have a weird role because the Washington doesn't have anybody necessarily that can do that? But I do feel like actually this is one where whether or not they have Lattimore, they actually match up okay.
The other thing, forgive me if I mention it on every show here.
Okay.
The Cliff Kingsbury offense.
Yes.
About the second half, right? In 2021, Arizona was the last remaining undefeated team. And it was Kyler Murray's, third year in the NFL in this perfect upward trajectory, right? Kyler Murray took a big step in year 2, an even bigger step in this year 3, which was 2021. They still made the playoffs. But the second, there's been a trend of Cliff Kingsbury's offenses kind of doing really well in the first half and falling off in the second half. Is that going to continue? This used to happen with Sean McVay. We used to talk about this a lot on the show, where Sean McVay's offense would kind of just like hit a wall, or like defenses would throw a different wrinkle at him. See, 2018, they started playing quarters. They throw a different wrinkle at him, and it took a little time to adjust. Is that a storyline that we need to hit on almost every week here, watching Cliff's awesome offense so far this year? And if the league catches up to them, 9 games into the season here.
Yeah, it's definitely something to just keep an eye on. I mean, Cliff Kingsbury generally, whether it's inside a season or whether it's year to year throughout his career, the overarching narrative has been lack of adjustments, right? Like, eventually the league figures up to what he's doing, or catches up rather to what he's doing, and he doesn't come up with a counter, and it just runs out of steam. So it's always something to watch, I think. The other thing from this game, this features 2, I think, of the most underrated running backs in the NFL. James Conner is just an absolute – sorry, where am I going with this?
Brian Robinson.
Brian Robinson on Washington's side. And then
Jaylen Warren.
There you go.
There you go.
My brain's malfunctioning.
Yeah, listen,
Robinson in particular, like, he's missed some time, so his numbers aren't great.
Your brain just went back to like James Conner when he was with the Steelers.
I know, yeah.
There's a little malfunction in pulling files there. It's okay.
Yeah, it's a recovery problem with the memory. But Brian Robinson in particular, like, he's missed some time, so his overall numbers aren't amazing. He's been running so well this year. He makes a difference to that offense when he's on the field.
There was a point last year, and the splits and everything can throw things off, but there was like an 8-week stretch last year where it was Jaylen Warren and Jahmyr Gibbs, who were the 2 guys who were the best at yards after contact, missed tackles forced, yards per attempt. I mean, Warren is dynamic, and him with Najee Harris playing probably the best football of his career. The Steelers, it's the most well-rounded offense they've had in a while. And if Mike Williams does add another, intermediate downfield threat, they can be dangerous. So it's a fun game, man. It's a really fun game. 6-2 Steelers, 7-2 Commanders. Commanders favored by 2.5 here at home. So where are you going with this one?
I am going to go with Washington. I'm believing this Jayden Daniels thing until proven otherwise, really.
Do you want to type it in? I got it. All right, you're taking Washington. We're going to all agree here. I'm taking Washington as well to cover the 2.5. As will Harry. Sunday 1:00 game should be a good one.
By the way, that's all hoping that Brian Robinson actually comes back. Like, didn't play last week. They sort of shut him down, I think, for his own sake. I think he makes a big difference to this offense when he is in there.
To mention, Chris Rodriguez was the closer, former Kentucky running back on Sunday. Did a really nice job for Washington. I just wanted to reiterate that really quick. Kingsbury's offense always had, they had wider splits. They just always had a really effective run game. It's been a good complement to what Daniels has done in the past game this year.
Mm-hmm. Thanks for watching all the way to the end of our video.
For more great content, click here to subscribe and here to watch another video. We'll see you again soon.